sugary seed, and there's about 30 to 60 seeds that are in there, and they're covered in this slimy, sugary mucilage that's this wonderful tropical fruit. And so, has anybody had lychees before, that fruit? Where you kind of peel off the outside and put it in your mouth, and you suck it off, and you spit out the seed. And the lychee's delicious, it's wonderful fruit. But the inside, which is what we make chocolate out of, if you were to bite into that, would be astringent and acidic like a banana peel, where it just like dry out your mouth. And even if you were to bite through it, it wouldn't taste anything like chocolate. You know, you wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I kind of get the earliest stage of chocolate flavor. Nothing. No, there's no chocolate. It's just like banana peel. Don't worry the noise. We're working on the building at the same time, so you might hear some pop-pows and like. Then from there, to develop chocolate flavor, it has to be fermented. They put the seeds in the big slimy with all the sugar and sweetness in a big box. Start that fermentation. The natural yeast and the sugars ferment. It needs to be just right, and you're stirring, agitating every day. You're stirring and moving it to a new box and agitating, checking the fermentation, making sure the temperature is correct. Then after that, they put them on either like big concrete patios, or in this next stage of this video, you'll see there they are moving the fermentation. And then they'll go on to drying racks in this next scene here, where he's raking them on kind of raised drying beds like that. And it takes usually about 30 days to dry it down to about 7% moisture. So before we've done anything as chocolate makers, so much has had to happen at origin to grow this great unique genetics of this cacao, and then you have to get it down without it rotting or something wanting to get it, and then ferment it. With fermentation, it can go wrong in so many different ways, and then you dry it. So a big part of us as single origin dark chocolate makers, you'll see a lot of our bars are like Belize Toledo or Madagascar Sambiranos. We're showing that that specific farm, that farmer at that location has done so much work, and all we're trying to do as chocolate makers is highlight it. And the majority of our chocolate is just two ingredients, cacao and cane sugar. So we're just trying to show off that chocolate in its fullest form. So all that happened. Now we're ready to, now they're exported in big burlap bags, which you can see in the picture. And then usually it's to Oakland, if we're lucky, or New Jersey, and then we ship them all in here, and they come on big pallets like that. But now we're ready to start making chocolate. We'll pull out a big pallet of beans over here, and then over in this room, this is where we start processing the beans. We've got, this is what the beans look like. So you guys can see these are dried, fermented cacao beans. They're all like that. These are ready to turn into chocolate. But our first step is to hand sort these. And so we'll, in this forefront, there's a like kind of conveyor belt. We'll hoist a big bag with our lift over to a vibratory feeder and feed all the beans off through a vacuum to get rid of the dust. And it goes onto this table where somebody's on the other side hand sorting every bean that's ever been made into chocolate here. It used to be on a flat table, now it's a little conveyor, but somebody's checked every bean. And the majority, the main culprits that we're looking for is this kind of stuff. Rocks and concrete and bugs and bullets and nuts and bolts and bones and chickens and things that you don't want in your chocolate. And it's kind of, this is our treasure bar, or our treasure jar. So we're like, whoa, no way, check out that gem. Put that in the jar, that's huge. Who knows where that came from? It could be some crazy artifact. So that goes into here.
So the chocolate costs more.
Yeah, exactly. They weigh these down with the bag. But fortunately, there's less and less of this coming, because as the industry's grown over these last 15 years, we're seeing, we're paying a premium to like pre-sort the beans, so we're getting higher quality. Where earlier beans were a little dirtier. Yes.
Do you get some of your cocoa beans from Ghana?
We haven't got Ghana yet. Our friends at Dandelion have got beans from Ghana, and so yeah.
Oh, okay.
Those are some good ones that are coming out of there. But then from there, the majority of what we're sorting out for is kind of doubles and shrunken flat beans. These ones are like what we don't want, because the fermentation process hasn't properly fermented around those beans. So we'll pull out the doubles, we'll pull out little shrunken guys, that kind of stuff. That all gets pulled out. And then we're ready to roast. We used to roast in these two little, I don't know if you saw in the window display, that little roaster that's there with the painted guy. That was our roaster for 14 years. And then we just upgraded to this roaster from 1934. It's a Bar Sirocco spherical roaster made in Germany. And it roasts about 280 pounds at a time versus our 30 pounds at a time we were roasting before. So this thing's much larger.
Massive improvement.
For cacao. We've been dreaming about this roaster forever. This is kind of has a neat story where it used to be Scharfenberger's roaster. I don't know if anybody's heard of Scharfenberger chocolate before. He was in Berkeley for years, and he was the first bean-to-bar chocolate maker in the U.S. in over 50 years, and he was in the late 90s, early 2000s when this whole thing kind of sparked with him. He was a wine guy, and he bought 4 of these and had this whole company. Then Hershey's bought him, and then our friends Soma and Canada bought it, and we bought it from him, and showed up last 4th of July. And here we are almost a year into this roaster. But what it's doing, we're roasting for flavor development. We're also cleaning the bean, and it also kind of puffs up the shell so that then in the winnowing process, it kind of separates. You can see there's like this paper thin shell that's there. I'll show you guys all. There's like a cocoa bean that's inside there. There's the nibs. So there's like this paper thin shell that's on the outside of that bean, and then there inside is the cocoa bean. So is roasting for flavor. We can also kind of separate. We want to delete that shell. There's a little shell that's around that cocoa bean. You see that guy growing inside there.
Wow.
And then, if you just kind of crack this all together, you just crack it in your fingers and crunch, turns into cocoa nibs. If anybody's heard of cocoa nibs, you put them in your smoothies and yogurt and stuff like that. It's just the cocoa bean in its purest form, ready to go. So what we need to do now is we take all these roasted beans we just roasted. We're going through pallets of beans up through the roaster. All these white buckets are now filled with beans. Goes through our cracker, which is just kind of a nondescript looking thing over on the other side, and cracks all that material together. And then we have a homegrown winnower, which is an old woodshop cyclone dust collector. It creates a vacuum. And then we have a vibratory screen. We designed and built this whole thing and kind of like screens all the material, so big nibs and big husk, and little nibs and little husk, and then that vacuum sucks off the husk, which weighs less, and the clean nib drops on through, to then what we're left with is nice, clean nib. And so then we'll have thousands of pounds of the clean nib without husk on there, and then this is now what we're going to process into chocolate. And so all that roasting, everything, each bean has a different roast profile, even different seasons of beans. You know, I'm always tasting and trying while roasting, checking if that fit. Am I there? Am I there? Even though the computer and we've got protocols, like this is generally where we're going. Like this is done now, or this could use a little bit more. And so Adam Dick is the roasting guy. I would say he's the mouth of the brand, where I'm the visual guy. I'm the creative director and the rest of the stuff that goes on with that. And so from there, we've got roasted nibs, and then we're going to take them on to our next step where we're going to start grinding and refining those into chocolate. This is also the back warehouse where everything comes in and where everything goes out, and we ship chocolate all over the world now, and so we have distributors in different spots, and the cardboard kingdom grows and grows and grows with boxes and boxes. Another fun thing is this barrel here, which you'll see barrels all over the place. Sometimes when we finally catch up and we have some extra nibs, we'll load these bourbon barrels with nibs and then let it sit for a year or two, and then it'll take on a whole new unique flavor of a barrel-aged product. But it's just in this nib form that then we'll fill that barrel and let these nibs just hang out in that bourbon barrel for a couple of years, and then turn that to a really unique chocolate that goes on that one. So a lot of the barrels in the front retail spot are just filled with nibs hanging out for a long time. Alright, well, you guys ready? I'll show you how the next step goes on.
Yeah.
Grinding these nibs and turn into chocolate. Follow along.
In that video going.
Yeah, let's go.
That one's like
Yeah, as you all heard, you know, that's one stage or one step of the cocoa processing.
Turn those nibs into chocolate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, so this is a big collection of, it took us over 8 years, like I was saying, with carpentry. We love old machines. Once we started making chocolate, and we realized there's a lot more machines that are involved in chocolate making. We just like fell in love with chocolate making. We're like, no way, there's heavier equipment and bigger pieces of cast iron. So then we spent years scouring Craigslist every day and eBay. No way, there's this huge roll mill in Wisconsin for only $3,000. Who would get rid of a gem like that? And so we'd ship it over here and take off all the paint and take apart all the electronics, rebuild it like you rebuild a car, and then figure out how to run it, and put it in the system, and then we'd wait and select that guy and get that going. So what we've created here, even though we're this is a very small chocolate factory, we're kind of recreating the best of industrial chocolate making, where they have over 100 years of science and technology. How do you grind that versus grinding this? But the problem with big industrial chocolate is there's just so much stuff in it. You know, it's like there's so little chocolate in your chocolate bar. Legally, you only need like 11% cacao in your 80% chocolate bar. So it's a lot of fillers and stuff in there. So what we're trying to do is take the greatest cocoa beans, just doing cacao and cane sugar, but heavily refining it to make a very smooth, European, high-quality chocolate bar. So that now happens in all these different steps to turn that into it. You can watch on the screen as well that kind of illustrates what's going on in machines that I can't explain with my hands. But the nibs go into the big hopper in the top. They're filled, a nib is roughly 50% cocoa butter and cocoa solids. So just like a peanut, you put it in a grinder and turns into peanut butter, releases the fat. Same thing happens here. The nibs go over the vibratory feeder, down into the hopper, and this machine's just kind of tall over there, into the hammer mill, and in the belly of the hammer mill, it looks like this. It's just grinding, releasing the fat. It's kind of a really quick, just jagged grind, and it's still gritty. And now we start to refer to it as liquor. Liquor is when you just start refining it. There's no sugar added to it. So the liquor comes out, goes into a holding tank down below where we're collecting, because you can see it's kind of slow. It's just grinding. It's a lot of energy, just like wears out stuff, turns into that thick paste. Now we need to further refine that nib. And so we put that liquor over in the corner. There's a big ball mill or an nitridor mill with the green motor on top of it. And you can see there's a big tank, a vessel, which you can also see in this video. There's a gigantic shaft that goes down the middle with all these wings. And in the vessel, there's thousands of little steel ball bearings, like quarter-inch steel ball bearings just loosely dumped in there. And they're all just stirring around. And all these machines are heated with hot water to keep everything fluid and flowing. And then what we'll do is we'll pump that liquor through all that media, around, comes out of the top, back in the holding tank, back through the media like this for 6 to 8 hours, round and round and round. Those little ball bearings are slowly fracturing that nib into 20 microns, which is half the thickness of a human hair. How small we're getting that big nib down to half the thickness of one of your hairs in a very uniform, even manner. So then you can see see how glossy it is, the sheen, the liquor is very smooth at this point. But now, this would taste like baking chocolate. You know, you've had baking chocolate, and you're like, oh, it's really stringent, I need sugar, the other ingredient. So if we're going to make a batch of 72% Belize, for example, we'll take roughly, say it's going to be like 300 pounds of sugar is going to be in the batch. So we'll take roughly 300 pounds of liquor just as a way of moving the sugar through this big pre-roll mill, which Josh is on. And we'll pump that slurry through. Josh is on his third pass now, but in the first pass, you can see up there, it's liquidy, it's sugar and liquor all crammed together. We'll pump it through there, and the big pre-roll mill is crushing all the sugar, but it's also tearing the particles. Each roller is going faster. It tears the particles, creates a film in the middle, goes to the next roller, the third one on the other side, tears the particles again, and each nip, is pretty tight, and then we take it all back around, tighten up the gap, go through for a second pass. So this is on the scraper on the other side. On the first pass, you can still see sugar and liquor, and then after the second pass, it's looking a lot smoother, it's refining, it's becoming the nib and the sugar. The nib's already been refined, now we're just refining sugar and combining the two. Then we tighten it up again for this third pass, which is what Josh, you can see him running the roll mill over there. And that's what it looks like on the scraper on the back end. It's kind of like the consistency of Play-Doh, where you're mushing your hand, you can kind of sculpt a little chocolate Play-Doh character out of it. But all this is to do what's called dry conching. I believe we're one of one or two small batch makers in the world that go through all these steps of lunacy to make it happen. And so from that chocolate flake goes into this conch, which is this big old machine right here. We got this one actually restored over in Italy, had it shipped over for us. But it's called conch. And inside the conch it looks like that. It's just stirring and agitating and heating. And so by being in that dried out form, we take that flake, it's able to round off sugar particles that even though they're small, they're all jagged like glass and ragged, and we want those all to be rounded. And it's also deconglomerating sugars and fats, so you have even sugar, fat. So it's in here for 24 hours. After 24 hours, the viscosity shift looks like this. Nothing's added to it. Just by kneading and routing, it's like kneading bread dough around for 24 hours. It's also off gassing astringent aromas and flavors, and so your clothes kind of stink of this like acidic flavors because you're kind of off gassing. We roasted for flavor, but now we're kind of off gassing some of the acidity of different beans. And each bean is going to be unique. I'm going to conch it for different amounts of time to down. Do I want more of that like very subtle flavors? This is too tart. I want to just really conch the heck out of it to bring in more of that nutty flavor. So after that amount of time, put the remaining liquor to bring it up to be 72% or whatever a percentage is going to be. Then it looks like that. It's 870 pounds of finished chocolate. It stirs for another 24 hours in this machine. So 48 hours total, all night long, round. When the power goes out here, which it does often, we run down here as quick as we can and then make sure the machines are all turned back on. We only had one power outage that lasted a long time. Then we had 800 pounds of solid brick chocolate that took a long time to melt back out to be in that space. But after there's another kind of like video what it looks like inside there. Then we dump that chocolate out into these 23-pound chocolate block bars that looks like this. And so we'll do 870 pounds of chocolate into monster chocolate bars. This is totally finished chocolate. I believe this was our 72% Madagascar. So you'd ask for this for Easter and just sit on that big old 23-pound block of chocolate. But what you'll notice is it's dry and crumbly, right? It's not like your shiny chocolate bar because it's just untempered in its untempered format, which is like your chocolate that melted in your car and then hardens up and it's all dry and ashy and just goes back to its untempered form. So from here, we're going to mold it into chocolate bars that look like that, which you've seen the shiny art chocolate bars before. Looks totally different. It's shiny, it's glossy, it looks darker in color. You can snap it. It's going to melt. It has a higher melting point once it's in temper, so you can kind of hold it a little bit longer than your untempered chocolate. And so that's going to happen over here on the other side of the hall. So let's take a peek over on this side. And in here is where we're going to temper and mold that chocolate into chocolate bars. And there's Coleman setting up the pump to be doing something a little bit different. But in this room, we have all sorts of different machines that do this process. The tempering is just where you heat up the chocolate to a certain temperature, cool it, bring it back up to a working temperature, and you align the crystalline structure of the cocoa butter in such a way that the chocolate is in temper. If I just melted chocolate at home and didn't go through that process, put it in a mold, put it in the fridge, it would never come out of the mold because you have to like hose it out of there. So tempered chocolate is a very unique thing. So in this case, we've got a big tank. Coleman's taking apart the depositor in there. You can see our kit of all the fun pipes and fittings you get to play with. It's like a big Lego set. If you can put all these parts together to make it happen. But then we have a depositor that kind of fits on top of there. It deposits the dosed amount of chocolate. And you can see all the molds on the wall. We have 600 molds that we run when we're molding. And then we will hand feed each of the chocolate molds like this. There goes 3 chocolate bars. There goes 3 chocolate bars. And this guy at a slow pace while we're videoing. Our record in here is about 9,000 chocolate bars in 5 hours. So we're hand loading, boom, boom, boom. It's every 2 seconds you can get chocolate bar going in there. But from there, we go onto a vibratory table over here to like level out the chocolate. And in this case, we're doing just single origin, so it goes on the fridge. But if we're going to do black fig or something, we'll sprinkle those things on the back of the chocolate bars. Then they go on to racks and into this just chilling room in the corner, which is about 50 degrees, and they'll be in there for about 20 minutes. There's a bunch of chocolate bars like that. They're all smooth and ready to roll in there. And after that, then they just drop out of the mold. So then we'll have people demolding all the chocolate bars. If there's any overburdens that are on the side, put them onto sheets, load that up, load up all these speed racks and chocolate bars, and then those cruise on out this space. This is also where we'll have our enrover in the corner where we do like chocolate covered caramels and all that stuff happen in this space as well. And then you can kind of see over in the corner are some speed racks and chocolate bars all loaded up on there. We have next month's micro batch and a vanilla milk chocolate bar as well that's coming out of that space. So from there, we've got finished chocolate bars, which now we need to wrap and finish, and that kind of happens over here in this space where they're taping up some boxes. But this is, we've moved in here 2 years ago, and we thought this building was going to be enormous and all the room we'd ever need, and we quickly outgrew it. And so now the bakery is really taking off, and so is wrapping and everything else. And so we'll get this going up. But we'll take those chocolate bars. And we'll first go into a flow wrapper, which is kind of hiding behind boxes and stuff like that. There's this big machine over in the corner, and we'll hand load all the chocolate bars as they're going down the jaws on the flow wrapper, cruising on down each chocolate bar on its way to its journey to be flow wrapped. Then we have our film that is formed around the chocolate bars. There's some heated rollers that seal the bottom part as it's cruising on by. And then from there, there's some heated jaws with a knife on them that slices it at the exact intervals of chocolate bars. It's kind of like a sewing machine where when it's working, sewing machines are the greatest thing ever. And when that bobbin goes wrong, it goes so wrong when you're mad at the sewing machine. So this thing can go wrong in many ways. But then from there, chocolate bars come off on this tail end. We'll load them into boxes, and they're packaged up and ready to go. From there, today we're just kind of stickering up the tubes. There's some bars on the tail end, but we hand stuff all of the bars. Last year, I think we did close to 500,000 chocolate bars. Hand stuff into each envelope, and then we hand apply a label under the back of it, on the back of the origins, and then they'll go into the case boxes, and then into the master packs, and then on back from there. Quick little video of this is when we first started making chocolate. Adam and I were like, oh, cool, we're going to make chocolate and wrapping. I got this great idea. My brother is this incredible artist who owed me some favors. So I'm like, hey, help me chocolate, draw this thing, and draw this boat. So he drew it. It's this really amazing thing, but I need to get printed, and where do I go? And we're so small. In those early days, we used to sell 50 chocolate bars a month to pay for rent. That was it. And we're still full-time carpenters, so to order 1,000 of anything is like unheard of. Like a year's worth of something. And so, Adam found on Craigslist on an old print shop that a guy was selling in his garage. Kind of like where sometimes people want to just get the piano out of their garage. They'll get it, just come and get it. And so we borrowed a truck and trailer and drove down and got 12,000 pounds of print equipment. And we didn't have a forklift, so we used pipes and come along, creep it onto the trailer, brought it to my parents' garage. Surprise, Mom! And we tore it all apart and learned how letter pressing and printing works. And it was a whole print shop with lead type and a linotype and everything. So all of a sudden we were running a print shop as well. And so still to this day we letter press all of our microbatch stuff, everything on this letter press. From a lot of our big runs of bars aren't letter pressed anymore, but all of our like limited and stuff like that is hand fed through this letter press from 1928. And so the envelope becomes blank like that, and then it prints each of the different origins like that. So that helped us as a small business to be very nimble, to be like, oh, I only want 100 Bellinis, and I want 100 of this. And, so they're cleaned up, they're hand loaded. If you forget your fingers in there, you have no more fingers. It's thousands of pounds of pressure. But on a good day when I was running that, I could run 2,000 an hour on that thing. Pow, 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 pow. And then it got big enough to where, if anybody's heard of Lynn Jones, just my type, letter press, now it's linoleum, she's right around the block. She started coming to my parents' garage, I ran out of time, and then it grew into a big enough thing that she started her own business here in Old Town, and now has won all these awards for her own cards and letter press stuff as well. Then she's just right down the street. But she still prints all of our stuff like that. And then the cherry tubes, all that stuff loaded up here, and then the chocolate is finished. Like I said before, we ship it out of there, all over the world, and then that's it. That's the life of chocolate.
That's it.
All of our creative directors and we have a lot of offices above this space, and all the photography, everything's done in-house. It's very much a family business. My mom's usually here rapping, and sister-in-law doing the books, and Adam's mom does our books and all sorts of stuff. So it's still a small family business for as far as the chocolate goes around the world. It's all made here in this tiny little spot. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
I'm sure
you.
you guys have tried chocolate, but if not, head on.